So I remember I was taken into a gravesite. Then at that gravesite, I saw there was a grave and there was a tombstone. It was written the Revelator's name and surname. But what amazed me was I could see the date of death. It was written 25 March. That was the date that I saw, 25 March 2025 on the tombstone. Then it was as if I stood there confused, and there were people who were cleaning other graves, and the grave of the Revelator seemed deserted, and different thorns were just growing up from that grave. So then I started asking the people around, where is the Revelator? And they just said, we don't know. This person was buried and people never came to check. Then as I stood there, an eagle then came and took me up. I passed several heavens up until I reached this other heaven where it was just courtrooms, because it was written courtroom A, B, C, different kind of letters. And then there was a courtroom which had the letter prescribed S outside. But then there were two guardmen which were guarding the door, and then they had two long swords, and then they were crossing like this. So it was as if I was trying to enter that courtroom, and they said there's a court in session, you are not allowed. And it was as if I knelt down, and then I started crying, and I said, please, please, I have to be in this courtroom. And then those two men, they said, wait, we have to confirm first if you can enter. And then they went and came back, and then they asked me, where do you belong? And I said, Mysteries and Revelations. Then those two men, they laughed at me, and they said, the people are inside, there are some of you, so you can enter. And then when the door was opened, to my amazement, there were two sides of the courtroom. The left side, there was nobody there. The left side, there were the disciples of Mysteries and Revelations. And then to my front, I saw the Revelator. He was standing on a witness stand. And then again to the front, at the left, there was a jury, a number of judges which were writing things down. So then they quickly pointed at me and they said, come. And then I sat there with the jury. So it was as if the Revelator, he was given a chance to say all the things and all the events and everything else that he has done in the ministry. So the more Revelator was uttering every assignment that he has done, all the intercession, all the prayers and the fastings, the jury was writing all those things down. And it was as if I joined and I was given a scroll. I started writing all those things down. And then the time came and the Revelator said, that is all. And then the judge who was in front, it was as if there were 24 other people. There were 23, and then the judge was in front, was the 24th. And then he said, is that all? Then the Revelator said, yes, it's all, but I am not done with my assignment. And then the jury was then given a chance to speak. And then one person stood there and said, this person is here not because he wants to be here, but because of the afflictions that he has faced during the time of his calling. Then another person stood again and said, he's here, I am repeating, he's here because he doesn't want to be here, but you called him, but his assignment is not yet finished. And then that judge was in front, he had a crown, the 24th judge, he said, he has to be here because the people who are there, they are not seeing his purpose there. So why should I keep him there? It's better for him to just come back. And then he took a paper.
Do you hear that part? Yes. That part underlines the whole thing about today. Repeat that part.
He just said the person who's here, he's here. And then it was as if those juries, they all handed all those papers that they were prescribing to the judge. And then he took all of them, he tore all the papers and said, all of this does not matter. My judgment is final. The Revelator's time has come. Then that's when the Mysteries and Revelations disciples, they all started mourning. Then the judge said, okay, I'll give you one last time. All of you come. And then they were all called to the witness stand. And then they started speaking things again. But they were being asked, if the Revelator is to be brought back, why do you want him back? And what will you do? So each disciple was given a chance to answer those two questions respectively. What will you do, and what are you going to do, and what is his purpose in your life? So each and every disciple, they started speaking, and I was still part of the jury writing all those things down. And this time around, I could see the face of the judge who was in front. His face was lightening up, as if now everything that was being said by the disciples sounded more convincing. And then after all the disciples had finished talking, he just said, okay, I've heard you. Please give us a moment to judge. And then he all called the jury, but I was at the back being part of the jury. And then he was saying, okay, I've heard all the things that the disciples have said, but I'm still not convinced, because I'm not sure if these people will really do what they want to do. And if they really mean it, because they are now just seeing that the Revelator is not there, and the impact, they are realizing it because it's not there, but still I'll give them another chance. And then the court came again back in session, and the disciples, they were still mourning, but this time around they were groaning. The groaning sounded more convincing, and they were very loud. And then the judge just commanded and said silence in court, and then he took out a paper and he said, okay, now I've given you a second chance. Treat the Revelator the same way that you should have treated him in the very beginning, not in this way that you were treating him. And the vision ended.
Right.